If you think about it, when is probably the most important question when it comes to retirement. Like, when should I start my Social Security? When should I start transferring my wealth to my kids? Retirement creates so many questions. Perhaps you have more questions than answers. That's why you should be tuning in for the entire show today as we share ways to answer the when question as it relates to retirement. Good morning. What a beautiful morning here in the Bay. Welcome to Protect Your Assets. For those of you just joining us for the first time, I am David Hollander, your host. People around here call me the Sandman. You hear the jingle. That's because I help you sleep well at night by protecting more of what you work so hard and long for. You can always email me a question if you're thinking about something and need an answer. questions@pyaradio.com. That's the email. questions@pyaradio.com. PYA stands for Protect Your Assets. You know the old saying, if you want better answers, then you need to ask better questions. Well, it's true. Retirement is a phase of life that is absolutely full of complex and confusing questions, but sometimes just rephrasing a good question can make it a great question and a better answer. Today, we are going to be talking about the whens of retirement. Like, when do you think you should start gifting money or real estate or retirement accounts? I had that one this week. To your family. When should I tap my investments and my different sources of income? Because those all have different rules, tax implications, timing. Retirement creates so many questions. Perhaps right now, maybe you have a few more questions than you do answers. Or maybe you're just waiting until you retire to figure it out, like a lot of people do. That's why you should be tuning in to the entire show today, because we're going to get into the when questions of retirement, what you need to know as it relates to that. As always, like other radio show listeners have done, if you have a question or you want some specific advice that's tailored to you, not your neighbor or your friend, like some of those big box stores, we are family owned and we are family direct, meaning one-on-one relationships, like to get to know you, like to find out what's important to you, and like to help you maintain and preserve that for your entire life, as we will be here to help you. Now, let's get started. So oil drops and the market partially liked it. The S&P was off this week about 2%, but the Dow was up a little bit, almost up 0.5%. The NASDAQ down 4.6. Again, that's more of the tech wreck occurring. The Russell 2000 up 1%. Right now, the small caps are dominating the market, up 21.3% year to date. MSCI International Index, that's come back pretty strong. It was off this week about 1.5%, but overall, year to date, up 17%. Another big one. The 10-year Treasury pulling back a little bit at 4.38. And oil this week, $72 a barrel, so it's come back down. We saw a sell-off this past week in technology stocks, and that was all over the headlines. The NASDAQ fell 4.5%, and it was led by a large 5.5% decline in the Mag 7 mega cap names. Meanwhile, the post-IPO exuberance, remember we were talking about SpaceX a few weeks ago? Well, it appears to be fading. Shares down 25% from the peak. However, away from the negative headlines, there was better news. Oil prices, well, they're falling. And the economic data is still pretty good. As we look at that, the stock market had some good performance this past week. And there is a rotation right now occurring in the leadership of stocks, going away from tech to other areas. The peace deal seems to be holding between us and Iran. And we're seeing recovery in energy flows through the Strait of Hormuz. Tanker traffic's picking up. So in response to that, we've seen the oil price come down to $72 a barrel. And that's down almost $25 from the peak we saw just a few weeks ago. Next week, we've got the 4th of July holiday coming up. So next week's show will be all about financial freedom and how do you create freedom in retirement. That is one of my favorite holidays. Love that show. So we'll be here live next Saturday, July 4th, talking about that. And so anyway, because of that holiday on Friday, the June employment data will be coming out on Thursday. And so I will be looking at that to see how the employment numbers come in, because that's part of the stability of the market right now, employment. And then next week on Wednesday, we're going to see the ISM manufacturing and the PMI index. Those are two indexes I look at to see what the momentum of the economy is doing. Any good race car driver knows that in order to carry that speed around that corner, you got to use momentum. It's not about just putting your foot on the gas. It doesn't work. So if you want to drive efficiently, if you want to push through tough patches, you need momentum. You need to do it in a quality, thoughtful way. And so those two numbers next week will show us what's going on, which is helpful. If you have questions, you should be speaking to a financial advisor, and hopefully one that has a lawyer, like an estate planning attorney, and a tax professional supporting them. And that's what we're all about at Liberty Group. You can call us and we can look at these different things for you, particularly if your people are retiring. Maybe it's time to make a change. So call us right now. Give us a call, 866-PROTECT, the number to call. Get some help, get a second opinion, get a fresh outlook, 866-PROTECT. Coming up next, we're going to be sharing when should you tap your retirement asset, like your 401k, while keeping taxes under control. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Welcome back to Protect Your Assets. I am David Hollander, the Sandman. In the financial and investing world, particularly when you get ready to retire, well, it's confusing. So many things you have to think about, and if you don't, you're just probably going to pay more in taxes. It's just that simple. The good news is it doesn't have to be that way. We're here to help you clear up retirement and help you gain the confidence you need to feel comfortable about where you're heading. Today, we're going to be talking about the whens of retirement. Like if you have a 401k, when do you start taking income out of that, and how should you do that? And then when you pass away, how do you leave those accounts to your family? It all started this week. We had a meeting with, I'll call it Jane and John. They came in and we were talking about this exact issue. You see, their retirement accounts are bigger than they're probably ever going to need, and their RMDs are huge. And when they pass away someday, we don't know when that is, but when they do, most likely there'll be a chunk of change there to pass on to their 3 kids. And the question was, well, how do we do that? Now, this is an example of a particular client experience. The client was not compensated for sharing it. The experience is not representative of all clients, and results are not guaranteed and will vary based on your circumstances. Just have to throw that out there. Okay, so this particular couple used our retirement planning tools. It's called eMoney if you want to check it out. But this is a retirement tool that you can build into it things like rental income, Social Security planning, your 401k distributions. When are you going to take those and how will you take those? And you can ask the tool and use the tool to figure out, do Roth conversions make sense and how much should you do? Now, to add to this, we do have tax people that we work with here, and so we can actually run tax simulations to see if you do certain things, what's going to happen. We get as close as we can because, as you know, life happens, and throughout the year, you're going to be receiving things like in this couple's case, they sold a piece of property. So how do you build that in and look at it from a tax perspective? Well, we're doing that now. We just met this week in our office over there in Larkspur and sat down and started going through it. And again, I want I want to talk to you about this today because that is a big difference about us and a lot of other firms out there, is that we've been here for over 30 years. We have a group, a team, in fact, of people that can step in after if someone retires or someone's not here. It's a team. When you're talking to a firm or people, are they going to retire? Are they going to sell out to somebody else? What's their plan for the future? That could affect you in 5 or 10 years from now when you need them most. So I was sitting down with this couple and we were going through these facts and trying to figure out when's the best time to start taking the distributions from the 401k. Now, he is 70 right now. And he was under the misconception that he had to start taking his RMD this year. And we said, no, in fact, you don't. But it could make sense for you to add about $200,000 of distributions from the 401k because your Social Security with your wife's right now is about $52,319. So if we take X out of your 401k and you just sold that property with the capital gain, because California, remember, has the highest capital gain in the country, these are the rates you're looking at. And you can control that tax bracket. So you pass that on to your kids in an efficient way, maybe through a Roth conversion. So when they receive it, it's growing tax-free all those years and they get it tax-free. And then it pays out to them tax-free. I've been talking about taking money from your retirement account, Social Security, things like that. One of the biggest questions of when that you're going to face in retirement is when do you tap your different retirement accounts? So what do you mean? You just said 401k, but maybe you have an IRA. Maybe you have a SEP. Maybe you have a Roth. You're thinking right now, aren't you? Good. This is a complex question. Well, you have to start out with understanding that in retirement, your focus needs to be on, write this down, how. Another word, how to best use your assets, not just how they're invested. People get so focused right now, particularly with all this up and down we've seen, on returns. I have so many people saying, I did so well on that way. Okay, I'll give you a month, 2 months. We're talking now 10, 15, 20, 30 years maybe. This is a marathon, not a sprint. Here's what I mean. Let's say you have accounts with different tax implications. Like what? Well, you have non-qualified accounts. Maybe you have stock options. Maybe you have a trust account. Maybe you just have a joint account. That's taxable. We call that non-qualified because anything that goes on in there is going to generate a 1099. And you're going to pay taxes on it whether you like it or not. It's just the way it is. Then you have all these things called tax deferred. That could be an IRA, could be a 401k, could be a Roth, could be an annuity, could be life insurance. And then you have another type of investment out there that's called tax-frees. Well, Roths can be tax-free, municipal bonds, health savings accounts, and if you have a certain type of life insurance, the distributions out of that can be, if you do it right, tax-free. So how do you put that soup together and then take it out in the most efficient way? It's a very good question. And again, that's where our simulator comes into being. We like to enter all that data, all that information into our system. And then you sit down face-to-face with someone who knows you, who gets to know your situation, who figures out what's important to you, your spouse, your family. And then they do their best to make sure that that works over time. And as things change, which they do, as we know, we're living in very exciting times where things are changing all the time. They'll connect with you and help you make some new decisions, different decisions, adapt to what's going on because nothing's ever static. And if you just set it and forget it, that's it. It's not going to most likely work. So again, that's why we use these simulators that are specifically designed for you. We spend a lot of time designing this tool for you, and then we give you the keys to it. So you can log in whenever you want, 24 hours a day, and you can look at it, and it gets updated every single night. So then you can see a lot of the questions you might have real time, And as things are happening in the market, you can look at your situation as opposed to what's published on the news or you hear on the radio or you hear from your friend. So stop guessing, stop playing around with this. If you want to know with some certainty if you're ready to retire, then you have to get a tool like this and start working with it and understand it and use it. Give us a call, 866-776-8328. That stands for 866-PROTECT, because again, as the Sandman, I'm here to help you protect what you've worked so hard for. By the way, today we have a checklist challenge. It's absolutely complimentary. We'll email it out to you. It just is a quick 2 to 3 minute run through. You'll see some important questions maybe you haven't thought about as it relates to your retirement. Call us and we'll send it out. 866-PROTECT. Coming up next, it is time for our popular They Say segment, where we'll discuss the when behind what you should do when you have to take the RMD. You're listening to The Sandman on the Protect Your Assets Radio Network. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Welcome back to Protect Your Assets. I am David Hollander, also known as the Sandman around here. And that's because I help you protect and keep more of what you work so hard for so you can sleep better at night. If you've just tuned into the show, today we are talking about the when question. There's a lot of whens you think about as you get ready to retire. In the last segment, we were talking about when do you take money out of your different accounts or your real estate. And that led us to the next topic now, which is going to be about your RMD. But before we get there, if you missed the market segment, a shift is occurring right now in the market. We had tech leading pretty strongly, and now it's starting to reset, and we've got other things that are stepping in, and you may want to know, well, what should I be doing? Go check out our podcast. Each week we do a market segment where we update what we're thinking and doing in our clients' accounts. And we talk about that. And so I did this morning. If you missed it, go check out our podcast. Where you find that is wherever you get your podcast. You just type in the little search glass, Protect Your Assets, which is the name of the show. And you will find our market segment. It has a profile of my face. I'm right now on the web. And then you'll see the market segment. There it is. All right. Very good. Now it's time for one of our fan favorite parts of the show. This is our They Say segment, where we discuss common myths, half-truths, and sometimes just bad advice that they say. All right, so here's one they say. They say that when you reach a magical age, I love that, a magical age in your 70s, that you must start taking money out of your retirement accounts and, of course, pay taxes on that. What should you think through when you are faced with this thing called the RMD? This is called the Required Minimum Distribution. And just to be specific, the rules now say if you're a certain age, it's 73, and if you're a different age, it's 75. So first you got to figure that out. Are you subject to the 73 or 75? Well, once you figure that out, just like we were talking about John and Jane last segment, then you start to lay those numbers in there. So in this case, Jane is 73 next year, and John turns 73 in 29. Now, their distributions weren't required until they turn the required minimum distribution age of 73 magically. Now, in this case, Jane did not have really any retirement assets to speak about. Yes, she worked hard and supported John through his career, and they built a very large IRA that now we are managing. And that account is going to throw off RMDs. And when we model that out, it looks like, based on their spending, that this is going to last for their lifetime. And there's probably going to be a nice chunk left for their 3 kids. And so the question was, looking at the model, It's showing that at 2029, they're going to have to pull out an RMD of $319,000. To be specific, $319,146. Now, our software looks at their portfolio, uses something called, I call it the portfolio MRI. So you get a pretty good idea of what the future looks like. And then we use the IRS tables to figure out what that RMD could look like. And we get a number that is specific, but again, within range, particularly if you're monitoring and following this like we do for you. So in this case, we're seeing that this is a fairly large RMD. And John and Jane don't spend that much money. In fact, right now in retirement, they are spending roughly $20,000 a month. And when you add to that their Social Security and their rents from their properties, they've got more than enough money coming in. And on top of that, they've got a couple $1 million sitting in a CD over at the bank because it just makes them feel comfortable. Does that sound like you? Or close to you? Do you have a lot of cash sitting somewhere? That is taxable. I get excited about this, sorry. So it's taxable interest. I know, but it's liquid and it's easy. I can get to it. But do you need that much? Do you really? And then when you pay all that taxes every year, you get really upset. So, you just have to look at the return on that money. Is it better to have tax-frees? Maybe you can have tax-free structured that are easy to get to, that pay you a little bit more, and they're tax favored. So we had that discussion. We started walking through those things and what those could look like. And she felt a little more comfortable with not having so much sitting in the bank because the bank doesn't really do much for her. In fact, they give her a hard time. And she's kind of tired of it. They say, oh, you got to have $500,000 on deposit with us. Well, what do you pay you zero interest on that? I don't think so. Is there another bank out there? Start talking to other banks. They don't require such large deposits. And for those that do, then you'd set up other accounts. Like we work with Fidelity and with Schwab, and we can open up accounts for you where we can invest that into short-term cash equivalents that pay, again, yields that are related to your tax situation, your financial needs. And then with the money you don't necessarily need tomorrow or next week or 3 months from now, then you invest that based on what you're trying to do. If you're not looking at it the way that we do, looking at the data, seeing what makes sense, running simulations, the when question of when you start taking that money out of the retirement account becomes very difficult. So in this couple's case, we were able to say, hey, you might want to take out about $218,000 from your 401k now and do that over the next 3 years until you, John, turn 73 and 29. And what does that mean? It means that you could convert that into a Roth and let it grow tax-free for your kids because you want to give them money, right? Of course you do. If there's left, of course you're going to enjoy your retirement. You don't want to suffer. But if there's anything left, which there probably will be, then you want to give it to your kids and you want to do it in the most tax efficient way possible because it just gives them more. And then when they get it, then they don't have to pay the government if they do it right. And then you say, I know, but that's hard and it's complicated and I can't think through that. That's not an excuse anymore. We can map that out for you using these tools. We can literally show you numbers and you can start getting educated and you can make better decisions. Coming up next on Protect Your Assets, when is the best time to take Social Security, you ask? Good question. Find out this critical answer. It's coming up next on Protect Your Assets. Keep it right here. Welcome back. Welcome back to Protect Your Assets. This is my daughter, Jackie Hollander, playing right now. If you want to get started in the morning, I like to get started with something like this. Get you woken up, a little cup of coffee, you're out the door, boom. Anyway, I'm David Hollander, the Sandman. People call me that because I help you protect and keep more of what's yours. The financial and investing world is confusing, particularly when you get ready to retire. And so today we've been answering that question of when. When do you do certain things when you enter retirement? If you wanted to know before you get into it, probably a good idea. So at the top of the show, we were talking about retirement accounts and what should you do about those? When do you take money from those? Gave you some examples of that. And then in the last segment, we were talking about the RMD, which is required minimum distribution, and how that coordinates with other type of income like rents from real estate, maybe interest off non-qualified accounts, life insurance, things like that, things you need to know about as it comes to planning your retirement. So we were talking about Social Security at the end of the last segment, and Social Security does play a role in retirement for most Americans, particularly because I just saw this recent survey about the retirement savings gap. I don't know if you saw this, but there was some research recently from something called Clever Real Estate. Current retirees believe the average person needs $823,800 to retire comfortably. This is up from $580,310 just a year ago. Yeah, and that's a sign of the times with inflation, right? But you know what the actual savings amount is on average? It's $288,700. It's about 29% of what is needed. So this question of Social Security is going to become a much bigger one, potentially as it relates to your retirement. And on average, again, these are just averages, Social Security makes up about 30% of a retiree's income in retirement, particularly if you do it correctly. So pay attention right here. When, again, there's that question, when do you claim your Social Security? It's a great question because it really does determine how much an income you will collect for the rest of your and potentially your spouse's life based on that one decision you're going to make. So let's go through a little bit of the rules. Don't have enough time to run through the whole thing. If you missed it, go check out our podcast where I do a show just on this subject. You can start drawing Social Security as early as 62. But if you do so, that rate will be reduced for the rest of your life. Also, if you want to continue working, which a lot of our clients do, they're not ready to hang it up at 62. They think they are, but they're just not. They can't. Then there's a limit to how much you can make each year before you get penalized. You don't want to get penalized. If you wait until your full retirement age, now this depends on your age. That's usually 66 to 67, depending on when you were born. Then there is no limit to how much you can make while you're still working. Finally, if you postpone claiming that benefit, and this is where a lot of people, again, make another mistake, past your FRA, the amount of that benefit will grow each year backed by the federal government, and it will keep growing until you reach age 70, and then that bigger benefit can pass on to your spouse if you were to pass first, and it was bigger. This is an example we actually walked through with Jane and John. I've been talking about them all morning, and we showed how John should continue to wait about another year till he's 70. So Jane, who wasn't working as much as John, earning money, she was doing a lot of things for the family, but not earning money. Her Social Security was a pittance compared to his. So how does she maintain that income if something were to happen to him? Big question. So give you an example real quick. The Social Security benefit of someone born in 1959 might be $1,237 at age 62. That grows to $2,000 at that person's full retirement age. But if they wait till 70, $2,582. So that's quite a big difference. And again, that's something that will have an inflation component tied to it. And that's something that will pay to that family for the last of that spouse lifetime. I know retirement is a major transition, and it's made up of many financial as well as life decisions. The last 10 years have been pretty good in the market. Things have been moving along. But I would just encourage you to take a deep breath right now and think about your future. If you feel like you have more than you need, that's a good thing. But remember back to 2008, remember back to 2000, things can change quickly. And then what do you do? So try to think about putting yourself in a position where, if that were to happen, when really wouldn't matter because you've already thought about it and planned it and done it. And it's ready to go and it goes. So how do you start that thought process and just look at what other alternatives are out there with someone who you can talk to, develop a relationship with, and who will be there to help you when you need it? You pick up the phone right now and you call us, 866-PROTECT. I'd like to give a big thanks to the Protect Your Assets team for a great show today. Executive producer, network manager, Kevin Renfer. And of course, my fabulous producers back there doing heavy lifting. You got Phil, you got Zach, you got Dylan, Raph. Thanks, guys. Because without my team, I'm just another pretty voice on the radio. You've been listening to the Protect Your Assets show. I am David Hollander, the Sandman. Go out and make the rest of your life the best of your life.